Hi, I'm Lillian. Welcome back to my channel, Inking Pages. So today's video is kind of a sequel to one I did last year, where I talked about some of the bookish and literary puzzles me and my family owned. And so today I have 5 more puzzles to do and talk to you about. So first of all, I have The World of Dracula. This was made by Lawrence King and the illustration is by Adam Simpson, who also did the illustration of the World of Shakespeare puzzle from my first video. This is also in the World of series from Stephen King, obviously all about Dracula. This also comes with the poster insert explaining all the references within the puzzle. And when I first did this, I listened to the audiobook of Dracula while I was doing it. I had read the book before, or had it read to me by my mum when I was little, but I barely remembered it. So I found an audiobook, which turned out to be a really, really good audiobook actually, and had that on in the background while I started this. And I do honestly think that's just the perfect way to do this puzzle. It made it just this really fun, kind of creepy experience to do, and it was really fun to listen to a bit of the story and then be like, oh my god, that relates to this part of the puzzle I just did, or the other way around. You'd finally do a piece of the puzzle and you'd remember how this related to the story and what part of the novel that was from. So it's just a really, really fun time. So my first impression of this puzzle was that it was really hard to do. So much of it, this big chunk of it is just night sky, it's just the blue sky. That was really, really hard. Another big chunk of it is just the grey rock face underneath Castle Dracula, which again is really difficult to do, even though I've done this puzzle 3 or 4 times now. And so much of the rest of this is black and brown and all these dark colors, which makes sorting the pieces very difficult. However, I really, really like the illustration of this. Even though it's so dark, it's so full of detail and it just feels really cohesive together as an illustration. And even though it has all these really dark elements, it never feels muddy as a picture. It's pulling everything together and balancing it all really, really well. I tried to pick a favorite section of this to tell you was my favorite section, but honestly, I found that really tricky because I just really enjoy this puzzle as a whole. It just works so well. And I think because I had such a fun time doing it the first time, I have this really positive association with it. So even the second time I did this puzzle, I obviously wasn't listening to the audiobook anymore, but the positive association carried over. And so I have a real soft spot for this one, which has helped a lot because I can understand that even though I had such a good time doing it and I continue to have such a good time doing it each time, I would get why other people might be doing this puzzle and just pulling their hair out and going really insane and getting really frustrated because of how difficult it is. So most of the illustration depicts scenes from the first third of the book, when the story follows Jonathan Harker in Transylvania, and then the rest of the story gets like far less of a look in. But to be honest, I'm not mad, because that first third of the book is easily the most famous and, in my opinion, probably the best bit of the book. So this huge section in the middle shows the castle, and there are loads of depictions of the scene set there. But you do also have like the end of the voyage of the Demeter coming into Whitby Harbour. You also have Renfield in the asylum and Lucy and her 3 proposals. So every time I do this puzzle, I feel like I'm noticing like new details within it. And then you also have, obviously, this lovely big poster, boom, to help you do it, because it's a very big illustration. And then it has like the full guide on the back, pointing out any possible detail you could have missed, and telling you about it. Also, just shout out for it being like a portrait oriented puzzle. I feel like I don't have many of those. I just really enjoy this puzzle. And the pieces of this puzzle just have like a really nice feel to them. They're very like sturdy cardboard, like high quality cardboard, and they fit together really well. So you could probably like pick up this puzzle after it's done and give it a bit of a shake, and it probably wouldn't fall apart, which I really like and appreciate. So like I said, I have just such a fond association with this puzzle, and I really enjoy it every single time I do it. So I'm gonna put it in the great puzzle tier. Next, we have Moomin, The Dangerous Journey. This puzzle is made by Flame Tree Publishing. Obviously, it's about Moomin. The series was originally published by Toby Anson, and there were also 5 like picture books to go along with it. And one of them was called A Dangerous Journey, and that is where this illustration comes from. It's actually a rectangular puzzle. It's like this, and actually the original illustration probably goes out to like about here. Like it has like a big chunk that's missing. But I really like the Moomin books. My sister, I think, has all of the main books, and I've read like 4 or 5 of them. I don't remember anything about them because this was like 15 years ago. But I've always really liked the Moomin stories. I love the vibe, I love the illustrations. So I was very excited to just find out that my family just like had this lying around, and I was really excited to give it a go. The first thing I have to say about this puzzle, and the first thing I realised upon trying to do it, was that this is so deceptively difficult. Like 85% of it is just green and white foliage, and it just took so long to get right. The only way to start off is to do the colourful bits, and then you just kind of have to wing it after that with all of the green and white bits. There are plenty of pieces that are just plain white, so you inevitably end up doing those bits last. I've done this puzzle 2 or 3 times now, and it is so frustrating and difficult every time, and I kind of like forget each time how annoying it was the time before, and like kind of trick myself into being like, oh yeah, that was fun, I should do it again, and then I immediately get frustrated at myself. Despite all of that, I kind of have to say that I do enjoy this puzzle, but not because it's so difficult, but in spite of it. So the bit I actually like is I just really enjoy the illustration as a whole. I love the style of the Moomin characters and their vibe, and despite how much green and white there is in this puzzle, I do like the colours, especially the like rich gold at the top. However, one thing I noticed is that the red bits, like the red flowers, seem in the actual puzzle to have like a bit of a lower saturation than in the picture on the box, which was a bit weird and kind of confusing at times. Like they just seem a bit like yellower than they should. But like the pieces fit well together. It's actually like a slightly bigger puzzle than the ones I'm used to. Not good or bad, just interesting. And it meant I couldn't like fit it exactly all in on camera when I was filming the time lapse for this. But the first time I did this, I would have said it was like too difficult to be a good puzzle. But now I've done it 2 or 3 times, and it's getting slightly easier each time, but like I am determined to crack this puzzle. I'm determined to bend it to my will and to get it to work for me, even though I think that will take upwards of like 10 more attempts at doing it. So I have a very begrudging respect for how difficult this puzzle is, and I'm going to very reluctantly put this in the good tier. Next, we have this puzzle called Classics Cascade, also from Flame Tree Publishing, and this illustration is by JVNA. I bought this puzzle completely randomly, completely spontaneously, on a trip to the Waterstones at Charing Cross, at Trafalgar Square. I kind of just saw it and was like, that looks like a puzzle I would really, really enjoy. And spoiler alert, this is now one of my favourite puzzles I think I've ever done. So of the 14 different classics I have been able to identify in this puzzle, I have read 6 of them. I have read King Lear, Jane Eyre, The Secret Garden, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, The Odyssey, and Grimm's Fairy Tales. And I don't know if these are like actual editions of books that already exist, or if the illustrator just like made these ones up, but they are absolutely gorgeous. I love the design of this puzzle. I love the bright colours and the detail in the books, and how each one has this slightly different colour scheme, so that once you've done the puzzle a few times, it just gets easier and easier to sort the pieces out. And then once you've sorted it by colour, then you can build it section by section really easily. The detail on the books is difficult enough to be interesting, but not frustrating. And it's only really like the white page edges, which I would say were at all difficult, and I like to always come to those pieces last. I love how graphic and crisp and clear the design is, and I'm just deeply obsessed with all of it. I love this. I love it so much. The pieces fit together so well and it's gorgeous. And I just think this is as close to perfect as a bookish puzzle could get. So I'm putting this straight in the top tier. I have so much fun every single time I do this puzzle. Have I mentioned that I love it? Next, we have another one of the World of puzzles from Lawrence King. This time it is The World of Charles Dickens, and this illustration was done by Barry Falls. So I have actually never finished a Charles Dickens book. Over December and January, I started reading A Christmas Carol, and I nearly finished it. I got like 80% of the way through, but then I just wasn't feeling Christmassy anymore, so never finished it. And then a long time ago, maybe like 10 years ago, I started reading Bleak House, and I did probably get about 150, 200 pages in, but that book is so long that like barely made a dent in it, and I was finding it quite boring. So I gave up on that one as well. So I've never technically read or finished reading a Charles Dickens story. However, he and his stories are just so entirely everywhere all of the time that I've probably seen like 50 adaptations of his work in various ways, and I imagine I will see many hundreds more over the rest of my life. So this puzzle is very similar to the World of Sherlock Holmes and World of Shakespeare puzzles I talked about in my last video, in that it depicts London filled with the characters from this world and from these stories. And I think it also walks the line between those two other puzzles in how like detailed and difficult it is, because this puzzle is just so full of everything. It's full of detail, like there is basically no empty space. That it's hard to know where to start. There are just so many like buildings and walls and windows and alleyways crammed with people and places and things. According to the inserts, which again tells you all about the puzzle and the references, I think almost all of his novels get a look in some way. The only ones that there are like no references to are Barnaby Rudge, Hard Times, and The Mystery of Edwin Drood. So you can easily find Oliver Twist, The Artful Dodger and Fagin. You can see Scrooge and the ghosts of Marley, Christmas Past, Present and Future. You can see Mrs. Havisham in her wedding dress. You can find the Old Curiosity Shop. And you can also even see Dickens himself in the puzzle doing a public reading of his works. One thing I would say is that for some of the characters, it's less clear who they are because all of the characters are quite small within the design. So if they're not doing something very interesting, you'll just like glance straight over them. So you might think that these guys are someone important because they stand out just a bit more than the others around them. But no, they're just filling the space. But I completely missed that this tiny, tiny figure is meant to be Lady Dedlock from Bleak House. Overall, I would say this is a solidly good puzzle. It's slightly too annoyingly detailed for me to say it's like an amazing puzzle, but it's also far too interesting and detailed for me to say that it's a bad puzzle. And finally, we have Alice's Wonderland. This is also from Lawrence King, and this illustration was done by Brett Ryder. I read Alice in Wonderland ages and ages ago, but I also actually have it in like a dual English and German edition, and I haven't finished reading that, but I do think this is the perfect kind of book to read in another language, just because of all the like clever things it does with language and puns. And I'm pretty sure this is also included in the World of series by Lawrence King, even though it's not called, you know, The World of Alice or The World of Wonderland. So I just adore the design of this puzzle, and every time I do a jigsaw puzzle, I am reaffirming the fact that I love doing puzzles where they are illustrations and not like a photo of a landscape or whatever, because I find those so boring. But this is exactly the kind of design I am looking for, and I love it so much. This illustration is just excellent. All of the bold colors and the easily defined segments mean that if you sort the pieces properly, you can do this like section by section in this really logical and satisfying way, which I love. There are maybe like 5 pieces out of the entire puzzle which are a solid color, so it's really not that hard. And even the first time I did this puzzle, I didn't struggle that much with it. Once again, we have a lovely insert which explains all of the references within the puzzle, and the writing here also talks about the lasting fame and impact of Alice as a character and of the story as a whole. And yeah, it points out all of the different references within the picture. Obviously, you have the tea party with the Mad Hatter and the March Hare and the Dormouse. You have the grumpy Queen of Hearts right next to the game of croquet with flamingos and hedgehogs. You have the white roses being painted red and the famous drink me and eat me labels. You've got Tweedledee and Tweedledum, you've got the white rabbit, and even the dodo, which was created by Lewis Carroll as a caricature of himself to go into the book. The only thing that lets this puzzle down, the only thing, is the feel of the pieces. They're quite thin and plasticky, and they just do not hold together very well at all. If you were like to breathe on this puzzle in the wrong way, it would shatter, it would fall apart. And it reminded me of the Jane Austen puzzle from my last video in that way, and it's so annoying because otherwise this puzzle would have been perfect, and it's literally just the feel of the pieces and their like physical qualities that is letting this down. And so because of that, tragically, I can't say this is a top tier puzzle, so I'm gonna put it in the great tier instead. So those are the next 5 bookish puzzles in my collection. I had so much fun making this video, and actually this series, this bookish puzzle series, is probably like my favorite thing I've ever made on this channel. So this may be the only kind of video I ever make from now on forever, because actually I already have like 2 other bookish puzzles in my cupboard, which I'm going to be including in the 3rd installment of this series whenever that comes, hopefully very soon, because I love making them. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one.